be posted to SAANYS.org for further viewing. And as you can see, everybody is muted upon entry, but then we'll feel free to unmute as we go and join the conversation. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Karen Bronson, our Director of Professional Learning. Karen? Karen, I think you're
You're
muted.
muted.
I think I was. See, that never happens. Yeah. Well, anyway, thank you, Michelle. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here today on this nice, warm afternoon, where I'm sure you could be doing other things after a long day at the pretty much tail end of the school year. We're looking at June. So it's wonderful that you're here sharing some of your day with us. This Power Hour is the last Power Hour of our series of many Power Hours this year. And we are very, very happy to have Dr. Eric Snell with us today. Eric is close to retirement. We could see him looking very happy and relaxed there. Eric is close to retirement after 24 years as a transformative administrator and the last 22 as an elementary principal. He is in Laurel Park Elementary School in Brentwood, and he is going to share some real wisdom with us today. When I first spoke with Eric, we had a great conversation. And I think one of the things I said is, think of yourself as the new principal you were a few years ago, and think about some things that you learned kind of along the way that you wish someone had told you more about at the beginning. And I know he said that one of the things was the importance of systems in our schools, right? Not
Yes.
just a bunch of kind of rogue practices that, kind of come and go with whoever happens to be in the role at that time, but more deeply set systems that really make the school run very, very smoothly so that other good things about learning and student happiness and well-being and all those good things can happen. The systems are like the underpinning for all that. The train's running on time. So we talked about systems a little bit, and Eric thought it would be great to share some systems in terms of his role as an elementary principal that he has found are really, really valuable to the day-to-day running of the school. And some of those that we'll hear about today are things that I'm sure many of you can relate to, things around arrival and dismissal protocols, honing and developing and improving an 8-period elementary school schedule with a focus on academic integrity, and revolutionizing the process for funding field trips and activity accounts. Those things can make a real difference in the culture of a school and just how smoothly things run so that every school day is one that students are learning and basically in a building where things are running fairly smoothly. So we're very, very happy that Eric's here to join us today. And this is also a great time because this is the time to start thinking and planning for next year's improvements. So if you hear some things today about systems that you might want to start to talk to your folks about back at school and start developing and implementing, you have the summer to think about that and do that with an eye on September. And I know that Dr. Snell will also give us his contact information so that if you have follow-up questions after today, you can contact him and ask him. So with that, thank you again, Eric, for being with us today. Welcome. And we're glad to have you here.
Thank you so much, Karen. Thank you, Michelle, as well. Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to talk about how to run an organization smoothly when everything feels chaotic. We often treat everyday problems like traffic jams outside of school, a messy schedule, or slow paperwork as isolated accidents or someone's personal mistake. Today, we're going to look at Laurel Park Elementary. We will show you how shifting our mindset from simple firefighting to systems thinking allowed us to entirely re-engineer our morning routine, protect our teaching time, and smoothly adapt to strict district-wide financial rules. Let's dive into what a system actually is. All right, excuse me. Before we talk about the school, let's talk about theory. Peter Singh, a leading expert on organizations, says we need to stop looking at life as a straight line or cause and effect. Life is a web of loops, which you see over here. Look at the diagram on the slide. If our staff feels overwhelmed, they start to leave. When they leave, our overall skill level drops, which tanks productivity. If we just yell at people to work harder, we ignore the underlying loop, which is down here. Instead, we have to find what Donella Meadows calls a leverage point, a small change that can fix the whole cycle. Let's look at our first real-world problem, the morning bus bottleneck. The school has 33 buses arriving every morning, but the rules only allow 4 buses to unload at a time. It created massive, stressful traffic jams that made the kids late and they'd miss breakfast. In the afternoon, it was just as chaotic in the sense that the buses would have to load 4 at a time and kids would miss their bus in the afternoon. So we were dealing with both of those things. And I want to give you a little look at what Laurel Park is, because I'm going to talk a lot from this example. So this is our bus platform right here. And this is the main entrance. We have a cafeteria entrance over here. So the buses, the big buses, and we have 12 of those, they would load up right here in this area where the kids would be sheltered. And they would let students out in the morning. They would load students in the afternoon, all 12. So 4 would be here. The rest would kind of wait up here until those 4 buses moved, and they'd come down and come in front of the platform to park. So you can see that this is such a time wastage. It was definitely very chaotic. The morning routine took forever, so we couldn't really start our day, and it just was very frustrating. Swan Place, which is a very important part of the equation, is a 2-way street that comes into Laurel Park. And then this is a parking lot of another school. We have an adjacent school called Loretta Park, and they're earlier schools, so they have an earlier arrival and earlier dismissal. So it doesn't interfere with our arrival and dismissal. But it was just taking up so much time with these ways, these systems that were in place. So imagine a school handling 12 large buses and 21 minibuses every morning, 33 vehicles in total. Now imagine the old rule, only 4 buses could pull up and unload at a time. This is what operation experts call sequential processing. If bus number 2 had a student who struggled to unpack or get off the bus, buses 5 through 33 were stuck waiting on the street. The results were terrible. Kids were walking into class late, missing their school breakfast, and the entire morning started with high anxiety for both teachers and students. It looked like a traffic problem, but it was actually a design problem. The fix: we redesigned Swan Place into a 1-way street. We didn't tell the bus drivers to drive faster, and we didn't blame the students. We changed the rules of the space. We turned Swan Place into a strict 1-way thoroughfare and expanded the platform so all 12 large buses could line up at the exact same time. So these big yellow buses, they lined up here all the way around to right here to start. So they hugged the bus platform. So it's all of this up to here. So all the big buses were there first, and then the mini buses were up there, up at Loretta Park. We stationed staff at key doors, and when the whistle blew, every single bus opened its doors at once. This is parallel throughput. Instead of waiting in line, hundreds of kids poured out simultaneously. We also split them up immediately. So younger kids went to the main entrance and the older kids went into the cafeteria entrance. So they would walk off their buses along the platform. The younger kids would go in here and the older kids walk right here. There's a door where I'm pointing the arrow. The entire bottleneck vanished overnight. No more missed buses, no more missed breakfasts, and a completely calm start to the day. So once the buses unloaded all their kids, they start leaving, and it's just sequential. Like they just left effortlessly, and the kids are in the building. They can grab breakfast, and they still have time. So it's just an amazing change to this system that was so broken. The minibuses then, once all the big buses are done, the minibuses line up and they unload their kids. A little different in the afternoon, but in the morning, they just unload their kids. I think there's 22 of them. But we do it all before the bell starts for our first period, which is 9:27. So everybody kind of gets in, they have their breakfast, and they're in the building when we're ready to start the instructional day. To tie this back to our research, author Donella Meadows notes that changing the physical structure and the rules of how things flow is one of the highest leverage moves a leader can make. In a broken system, a delay causes chaos. By switching from a slow single file line to a massive parallel drop-off, we took the delay out of the equation. What used to be messy, daily nightmare became a highly orchestrated, beautifully synchronized morning routine. If anyone has questions, you can kind of unmute, but that is our first case study. Karen, do we have any questions in the chat?
I don't see any yet, but I would invite people right now, just unmute and just kind of tell us a little story about your morning bus routine. That's the topic. Your morning bus routine. What's good about it? What could use fixing? Let's just land a minute on this topic about that all-important morning routine.
Yes,
and let's just hear a couple of comments.
I'll take a shot here.
Hi, Kevin.
Thank you guys for putting this on. We have a elementary school of about 750 kids, and it seems like we have a pretty good system. It's about 15 buses in the morning, and we do have a place for each of them to park. So we have our K through 2 get off first, and then they go to their classrooms, and then about 2 minutes after that, 3 through 5 gets dismissed, and they have the opportunity for breakfast, either to go to the cafeteria or to their classrooms if they're getting breakfast or not. But in the afternoon, we have, I wonder if there's any solution to it. It kind of feels like not, but we have the buses come after they're finished the middle school and high school drop-offs. Yes. And there's a frustration among the staff, rightfully so, when buses are late coming back, when things happen in the afternoon. I guess there's any thought on that.
Yeah, Kevin, that's a really good point. I didn't really talk a lot about the dismissal, but it's the same sort of concept. The kids come out the back. There's a back entrance here this is the primary wing, and this is the intermediate wing. So the 12 big buses, again, hug the bus platform, taking up all the space. And the teachers actually walk the kids out in a parade dismissal. So intermediate comes out first because they're quicker. They walk down this path. they come to the bus platform. The first bus is here. So whoever rides the first bus, the teacher releases those students to go get on that bus. And then the teachers keep walking, the next bus, the next bus, the next bus, the next bus. Not one kid ever misses the bus in the afternoon. The teachers physically tell them to get on the bus, or they know. And it's a great sort of checks and balances piece. And we have one bus, I want to call it bus 109, that's usually late. But the day finishes, our day is supposed to finish at 3:52. All of our big buses, as well as our minibus dismissal, is done at like 3:45. So it's almost as if they have a shorter day because they're out, you know. But we have the similar problem. We have our schools. Well, my buses come from Loretta Park. So their bus, they dismiss a half an hour earlier than and then they drop their kids off and they come to me. My school is also unique in that everybody's transported. I don't have any walkers. So I have 640 kids, and they're all transported. And I only have 17 minibuses in the afternoon, which is awesome. So everybody kind of gets out early. You have very happy teachers, you know, leaving before 3:52.
So this, I guess, is maybe separate from a systems question. I'm still in my middle of my, or towards the end of my second year as in administration. Maybe the question I should be asking is just anticipating frustration and upsetment from staff. And that's reasonable, and just managing that and, you know, not taking it as something that I need to try and fix.
Right. Taking it
Does that feel
personal.
like accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
that there are certain variables that you can't fix. But, you know, there are small tweaks that you can make to make things better, to change the system.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem.
I have a question, and it's for Eric and anyone else in the room. I was a middle school principal for a long time, and at our dismissal time, and the morning too, the buses were never the problem. The flow was not the problem. The parent pickup was a problem. The way the parking lot and the way that the real estate was set up there was not ideal in terms of how parent pickup worked. And it was tricky. And, you know, a lot of times we kind of had to calm our bus drivers down because, you know, the rules that we had set up for the middle and high school, which were connected to, sometimes the parents did not observe those rules. And, you know, it is a safety issue at some point. And so that was something that, you know, we as an administrative team, we really worked on that in terms of the parent dismissal part. We did make progress. And we did have to do some things that were pretty restrictive, not popular with everyone, but we had to fix that because it was not only a safety issue, but a terrible way to kind of start the day and end the day with the level of kind of anxiety that was going on out there. So I guess my question to the group is, and to Eric, how does parent pickup or drop off figure into your arrival and dismissal?
Great question. So I think you hit it on the head when you said you had to be really restrictive. Like I said, all the kids are transported to our school, either buses or minibuses or parent drop-off. But what we do is for dismissal, we have a period of 3:15 to 3:30 if you want to pick your kid up early. And that's right before the buses come onto the platform. You have that 15-minute window. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to pick your kid up early. And we're able to dismiss these kids orderly and safely before our dismissal process begins. You know, in the morning, when the big buses are hugging the platform, there's another lane that we have parent drop-off. So the parents come down, this is Staley, and alongside the buses, because all the buses are facing, we have an opening right here. And my security guard, one of my security guards, I have two, he takes the kids out of the car, like he'll unlock the door and he'll not unlock the door, he'll take them out the car and then he'll walk them into the building. So there's like a gap here between the big buses. And that lane continues to go and follow a traffic pattern. So the big thing that I had told you guys is we made this one way when we have the big buses on the platform. So the car lane or the parent drop-off lane has to come down here and then they turn. We have cones and everything blocking. And then they have to go around and up and out the other way. So they're not allowed to come this way. This is only for incoming. So we block it off in the morning and we block it off in the afternoon. So nobody is allowed to go down Swan Place this way. It's blocked. They have to go around, and there's another entrance called Staley Street that they're able to enter and exit.
Thank you. Unless anyone has any other questions or comments on the bus topic, Eric, we'll move on.
All right, sounds good. Okay. Now, how do you keep an 8-period day running on time? Excuse me, I'm sorry. Our second case study moves from the parking lot into the classroom. We wanted to increase learning time and academic rigor. Previously, the school day had a vague, loose 50-minute block that mixed lunch and various teacher duties. It was inefficient. We decided to create an 8-period schedule. But you can't just mandate a change like that without dealing with the human elements and the labor unions. Leadership sat down with the union head, that is myself and the teachers union president. We looked at the system together and made a deal. We would completely eliminate tedious supervision duties for teachers at lunchtime. In exchange, teachers agreed to follow a highly structured, rigid schedule. We built legally compliant 40-minute duty-free lunch right into the blueprint, satisfying the contract while protecting learning time. Now, how do you keep an 8-period day running on time without administrators acting like hall cops? You automate it using feedback. We reprogrammed the school bell system to enforce sharp 3-minute transition windows. The bells act as behavior nudge. So in psychology, a nudge is an environmental cue that changes behavior without forcing or ordering anyone. Teachers and students quickly realize that when the chime rings, their brains automatically switch gears to the next subject. The automated bell keeps the entire building perfectly synchronized without manual micromanagement. And you just really become accustomed to it. This is the bell schedule that we created. So this is when the students come into the building from 9:12 to 9:24 arrival, and they go into the classrooms. We called it homeroom. And then it's 40-minute periods, including the lunch periods. I think the lunch periods begin period 3 through period 7. And it just has been sort of like a game changer. This perfectly highlights Peter Singh's famous rule, structure drives behavior. If a school day is structured loosely, lessons will drag, transitions will take forever, and classes will run late. Traditional managers try to fix this by reprimanding slow teachers. A systems leader, that is I, fixes the framework. By creating a rigid 8-period structure, the environment itself prompted accountability. Punctuality became a natural byproduct of how the day was built, not something we had to constantly police. thoughts, feelings, reactions, an 8-period day in elementary. What do you think? You can unmute yourself.
Tell us a little bit about your schedules.
Please.
It's interesting to see that you moved towards a bell schedule because right now in the primary grades, I'm looking to move away from the bell schedule. So I almost just want to know, just to ensure that there's enough like adequate time to have enough flexibility in what's happening in some of the foundational skills and like ELA instruction. So sometimes some of these components of foundational skills don't fit into a box, right? Like
Yes.
phonemic, phonological awareness, those activities are only about 10 minutes. So then what's going in the other 30 minutes to say that it's a strict period? Do you know what I mean? So I kind of want to hear your thinking around that.
I think it's the regiment of it really helps teachers stay focused and be efficient. One of the things that we started with our first graders, or first through fifth, is we did a walk to learn. And I believe that's period 4. And it's like an all hands on deck where the kids in first grade are differentiated based on foundational skills. Okay. And then the consultants, the reading consultant, the math consultant, they're doing like 10-minute intervals in this fourth period day of like stations. And it really has helped our kids focus instructionally, and it just has become a sacred time block. So I don't know. I feel like it really has brought up, the instructional rigor. Like there's just not a lot of fluff. Like, let's get into it. Let's go. Let's get started. And then when you hear the chime, you're like, okay, it's time to, it's time to transition. And you have 3 minutes till the next bell. So you can kind of get the kids to transition. There's a 3-minute, we give a 3-minute pass where they're in the hallway, like say if they're going to a special, they'll have time to get from one location to the next. But as a classroom teacher who has their kids all day, most of the day, it kind of keeps you on track. So you have a bell that ends at that period, and then 3 minutes later, it rings again. So it's really cool. So 10:07, for example, is the end of first period. So you'll hear a bell, and then 10:10, you'll hear another bell. So it's really kind of cool. I hope I helped.
Yeah, it's just good to get some insight. Thank you.
No problem.
Eric, how did it work? You said initially you really had to work with the teachers to change to this 8-period day plan. And one thing that was helpful was the ability to take away, a lot of the duties that they had prior. What happened to those duties? Like, did other people have to do them? Did you have to hire?
Yeah. No, we didn't have to hire. We absorbed them through our monitors. We have lunch monitors.
Okay.
So when we had the 50-minute period lunch, they would do like cover almost like 30 minutes. And then two teachers would have to do 10 minutes. Okay. So it's almost like, so the one teacher would get 40 minutes and the other teacher would get 40 minutes, but they'd have to do duties. One would do it on the front end. The other one would do 10 minutes on the other end. So what we did is we took those both away. And this is what I had to negotiate with the teachers union. And then the monitors absorbed 40 minutes. So instead of the 30 minutes that they were doing, they now had a little bit of a longer day. And it was easier financially to, pay them a little more because then, get the huge gains from it.
And the monitors were kind of favorable toward it?
Yes.
Because they were getting paid a little bit more and
yes.
their day wasn't too much longer.
No.
Because that's really a dance, isn't it?
Yes.
In terms of
it's a very delicate dance.
everything impacts everything else.
Yep.
And when you want to make a change like that, front loading, the negotiation part with folks you have to negotiate with is really key. But so here we are. So fast forward, you've had this schedule now for like how long?
About 2 years.
Okay, so you're 2 years out. And how would you say teachers in general feel about the change?
I would say that they feel very comfortable with it. It's just a way of life. And I had thought about doing video with the transition to see elementary kids moving, leaving their classroom, going to gym, leaving their classroom, going to lunch. And it just sort of has that sort of intermediate feel, like almost a middle school feel, just the hustle and bustle in the hallways. And it's orderly, it's efficient, and there really is a huge focus on instructional time. Like your instructional time remains sacred.
Important. Let's hear from someone who is with us today, one of our attendees. Tell us something about your elementary school schedule. There are so many ways to schedule in elementary school, of course. Tell us about something that your school has kind of learned that works. It could be very different from this 8-period day,
Right.
but who can share something about your schedule and what is working about it, even if it's something very different from what Eric shared? What's an example of a way you schedule that is not an 8-period day if you are in
Yeah.
an elementary school?
Thanks, Kevin.
I mean, so I have a question if nobody else has
Go for it.
something to add. I would be interested, maybe Miss Backlund, why you're switching off the bell schedule.
Thank
We
you.
currently we need to figure something a little different out. It kind of feels like we're in a weird spot. But really, I'm looking at the bell schedule that you have here on the screen, and you mentioned your school has like 750 kids.
About 650, 650,
Oh,
640.
650. I don't know if anybody else in here has a large school like that, but something that we're trying to work through on our end is we have 5 lunch periods. They're 30 minutes. So there's like 125 kids in each lunch, and it's very loud. And behavior is pretty good. It's just very loud and a little chaotic. I'm wondering, like, looking at it, of these, is your lunch, and that's the root of the lunch and schedule connection that I'm trying to make, is that we have our lunches don't match up with the
The
periods.
periods. Okay.
So that adds a little element of chaos, but they're 30-minute lunches. So I'm wondering
Okay.
a few things. You have 40-minute
Oh,
lunches.
So this is how we do it. That's a great question, Kevin.
Yeah.
So each lunch period is usually a grade level. So because 5 grade levels, there are 5 periods. So half of the grade level goes to lunch first for the first 20 minutes. The other half of the grade level goes to recess first. And then they swap. And it's less kids in the cafeteria. It's another transition, but it just makes it manageable. I have to say, it was a little tough going from like a 50-minute lunch period, especially for the younger kids, lunch recess period, because it was split in half, to 40 minutes. So my concern initially when we started doing this was kids weren't eating their lunches. And I'm big, like you got to feed these kids. We're a Title I district. We want them to eat. So there was a lot of waste, and that really struck me. So what we did was we trained the monitors, and we're like, listen, get your kids through the line as quick as possible, the lunch line, and then have them eat, encourage, discourage the socialization as much, because it's only a short period of time, and have them eat. And it's gotten a lot better. Also, the lunches have gotten better too. So student lunches. But having that swap, like half go to recess first and half go to the lunchroom, to lunch line, and then the swap made it a lot better.
Who manages the transition? So the students getting from
The
recess to
monitor.
the cafeteria.
The monitor.
Okay.
Right.
Is recess indoor, outdoor? Is it like pretty quickly connected?
I try to get them outside as much as possible. It's they have to walk through the building. So this is where the cafeteria is. Our playgrounds are back here. So the kids leave this area, this cafeteria, and they walk down the intermediate wing, and then they run out onto the playground. And then kids come in either the intermediate or primary wing, and they walk around. I'm walking down the middle of the building, cross over, and go to the cafeteria, which is over here. So it's probably about 3-4 minute walk. If you're trying to keep them quiet and stuff, the monitors try to keep them quiet, in terms of the transition. But it's been working. It was a rough start with the lunches, but we've gotten used to it in year 2.
That would solve a lot of our issues potentially. When they're inside, when you can't go outside?
They go into the classrooms. So teachers know that the monitor stays in the classroom with them.
Okay. How many monitors do you have?
I think I have about 6.
Okay.
So
right.
I have between 4 to 6 classes per grade level. So it just kind of works out.
Okay.
The superintendent was very generous with allowing us. Yes.
Thank you.
No problem, Kevin.
We also do the swap, but rather than do it half a grade at a time, I don't have the luxury. I only got 3 lunch periods and I have to get pre-K through 6 through it. So I hear.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So
So
sorry.
we have like the pre-K kids, they do their lunch in the classroom.
Yes.
Just so that it's not too congested, but we do whole grade level swaps. So like when 2nd grade is outside for recess, 3rd grade's getting their lunch, and then the grade swaps.
Okay. Wow.
And that works because at least the cafeteria we have split in half, so at least we could split it up that way.
Okay. No, that's awesome.
And then for 1 period, we obviously have 3 grade levels, and what we found was an alternative recess space for one of the grade levels, so that they all weren't I couldn't have 2 grades on the playground at one time. It was just too chaotic. So
I agree.
For the older kids, for the 6th graders who really just wanted time to either chat or just like really socialize in a different way, we kind of use like more of like adult like space for them, so that it's not like them being on slides and stuff that they wouldn't normally do.
That's really awesome. I like that idea a lot. Another great idea, Kevin.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
My school doesn't have pre-K, but I do know of an elementary. There's 17 schools in my district, 11 elementaries, but a couple of the elementaries have pre-K, and I know that brings along its own challenges, having such a young group of students in the school. Yeah, you're shaking your head. Awesome. All right, friends. Talked about instructional rigor. Let's talk about the last one. This is a big one. Okay. Our last case study looks at what happens when a system faces an outside shock, and that's exactly what it was, what we call a thrusted system. This happened when the district handed down Policy 1510. This policy completely stripped away local financial control from 17 individual schools. I want you to look at the shift on the slide. Previously, if Laurel Park wanted to spend student activity funds, the principal I just signed a paper. We used our local bank, and auditors checked it later. Easy and fast. Under the new policy, our local accounts were wiped out and merged into one giant account. Excuse me. To spend a single dollar, we now have to submit paperwork up a ladder to the superintendent and the central treasurer. It added massive bureaucratic weight. Let's look at how we adapted so our school wouldn't grind to the halt. So this is the famous 1510. And it doesn't look intimidating as a policy until you start like reading this piece about, a fund drive must be sponsored by the district or school-related organization, booster club or nonprofit recognized community organization, and in compliance with the state ed requirements. But here, funds raised through school-sponsored activities must be deposited and accounted for the extracurricular fund. Accounting for funds raised by school-related and community groups are the responsibility of such groups. All fundraising efforts at the school level must be approved in writing by the school principal and the superintendent. So that was a huge change. And you're talking about somebody who's been in the same school for 22 years. And now, last year, I had to adjust to this change. When a higher authority forces a slow, heavy process on you, you can either complain or adapt. Laurel Park chose to adapt by creating a protective subsystem. First, we started batching. So instead of deciding on fundraisers month by month and waiting weeks for district approval each time, teachers plan their entire year in advance. We packaged every single fundraising proposal and submitted them as one massive batch in September. This cleared the bureaucratic runway before the busy school year even started. Second, my head secretary was appointed to the financial liaison. So by routing every single scan, transaction, and slip through one expert node, we eliminated clerical errors and kept our goals perfectly aligned with the district's strict timelines. It has been a learning curve. There have been things that, proposals that we put in September that came back and were denied. We had to contact the superintendent again, or we had to look at it and maybe reroute it through parent PTA. It was a very strict checks and balance system that the school just really had to kind of connect with. To ground this in theory, Donella Meadows notes that hierarchies exist for a reason. They keep massive organizations safe. Policy 1510 intentionally sacrificed individual school speed in order to gain district-wide security and compliance. To make this work, our staff had to change what Peter Singh calls the mental model. A mental model is deeply ingrained belief. Teachers had to stop thinking, this is my grade level's private money container, and start thinking, we are caretakers of a shared district fund. Once the staff adjusted their mindset, including me, to match the new rules, the tension dissolved and the process became routine. And it really worked its way out. I was complaining a lot in the beginning because this is my final year and I had to kind of jump through these hoops in terms of getting things done. But we did what it needed to be done to make sure that our kids still benefit, Thoughts, how is your activity funds in your school district handled, especially in private schools or, public schools, excuse me?
How many elementary schools are there in Brentwood, Eric?
There are 11.
Big, right?
Yeah.
How many total students are in Brentwood as a district?
I think we're down to about 17,000.
Yeah, down to about 17,000.
We
right?
were
So
the
that
largest.
gives us the context.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of freedom. Like, if a teacher bought some stuff for kids, I can write a check.
Yeah.
Here you go. I'll pay you back.
Yeah.
It was a very sort of loosey-goosey system. I could go to the bank. My secretary could go to the bank. Now it's like specific people. All transactions have to be submitted and scanned and sent up. It's one big account. So I wonder how, activity funds are sort of handled at your school district, the smaller ones. No takers.
Where's Kevin?
All right,
There
Kevin's
he
coming
is.
back.
I knew we
Sure,
knew we
why
could
not?
depend on you.
We're here.
Oh, poor Kevin.
Come
So we're similar, just that's been thrust on the buildings to be more accountable. I wonder if it's something statewide that was sent out to upper admin, but so we just, and I was previously an athletic director, so that was actually some helpful experience before coming to elementary with the fundraising and booster clubs and having the viewing it as an umbrella account, and all the funds come into one account, and we just have a Google Sheets that tracks who brings in what and who spends what. So while there is money all in one pot, essentially, um, each of the club leaders know what they've raised and where their accounts are at, and they have the autonomy to make purchases as long as it ties to what they're trying to do.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I think it is. I wonder if it is a unified approach or something that was passed down by the state, because I feel that way. We get an activity log. My central treasurer, my secretary, gets an activity log for the month, and it lets us know what was deposited, what was spent, what checks were written on behalf. So it's just a much more regimented, compliant system.
Mm-hmm.
So now I keep statements. And we also, well, they have the bank. It's one bank too. We all deposit in the same bank. So principals have access to the bank. We had to go up with our licenses and, to be on the account. So it's the real deal. It's very different.
Yeah.
Yeah. And once again, what you described is you're faced with a challenge, a real burden of bureaucratic weight, I think you put it, and that's a good way to put it. And you had a choice. What are we going to do? Have things, field trips and good things for kids, grind to a halt? Or are we going to adapt? Well, as school leaders, we adapt, right?
Yes.
And very creatively too, I might add. And looking at every piece of the puzzle that has to adapt in order for that adaptation to happen, because it's not us changing our mindset about how we're going to do financial business in our school. It impacts everybody, teachers, parents, most importantly, students, you name it. So, just this ability for some of our, newer administrators, this ability to say, okay, we're going to have to adapt and adapt again.
Yes.
And again. And the steps to doing that, even though the topic, the adaptation might be very different, become more familiar. Who do I have to get in the room? Who's this going to impact? Who's going to be most troubled by this? And how are we going to work around that? That really, in a way, Eric, you told us 3 stories today about the buses and the schedule and funding, but you really told the story of kind of a school leadership mindset in terms of here's what we got to do. And, as Kevin kind of brought up early, not everybody's going to be happy.
Correct.
That's for
so
sure.
True.
But,
so true.
When you are really certain that something has to change, like the unsafe situation in my middle school parking lot with parents and bus drivers, really upset.
Yes.
And kids getting caught in the traffic of it, had to change.
Yes,
so
it's very dangerous.
Here's what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
So really these examples that you shared today were very helpful to us, because they paint the bigger picture of, yep, that's what our jobs are like, right? That's what we do. And you've been at yours a while, and you've given us some great things to think about. And you have a lot to share as you look at your next chapter. So we wish you all the best, and we'll talk again soon.